farmers, trust is everything. At Genesis Fertilizers, we're not just proposing to build a facility, we're building a future designed for you. With real progress already underway, we're closer to providing Western Canadian farmers with a reliable, locally produced fertilizer supply. Now is the time to take control of your farm's future. Learn more at genesisfertilizers.com/credibility.
We got some news this week in the area of wheat politics. The Wheat Growers Association, based out of Western Canada, has a new executive director, familiar face in the wheat industry. It is Darcy Pawlik, and he joins us right now. Darcy, great to have you on the show.
Thanks for having me, Sean. Great to be here.
Yeah, so give us some of your background.
Well, it's a long one, so the short version is spend some time in the association. Great organization, Ag West Bio. Did a lot of advocacy, learned some of the basics there, got to meet everybody. Moved into Syngenta, lucky enough to get my feet wet with regulatory, headed up the seed division for Canada for a little while before moving south of the border, where I did everything from industry relations to running AgriPro for a little while. Fantastic experience. Did the startup world, hoping to get rich. Didn't quite work out through the pandemic, but learned about crop insurance and agriculture in many different parts of the world. Fast forward to marketing agency, fantastic learning experience, trying to really understand what goes on in the depths of marketing. And now I'm back here, one place I love, in policy and politics, Canada and wheat, and looking forward to this.
Yeah, so what is it about the role that does attract you? Why this role now, based on some of that background and that history and those experiences that you have?
You know, I was lucky enough, I got to work with the wheat growers for many, many years. And one of the things that you can't take away from them, or anybody really that dedicates their time to the industry and volunteering, is passion. You know, you meet the wheat growers and the folks that sit on the board and they're out advocating. Second to none, big heart, lots of passion. You know, these are the movers and shakers in the industry. So big attraction.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, who are, for some people that aren't familiar with the wheat growers, who actually are the wheat growers? We have a lot of different associations. We have membership orgs. We have checkoff orgs. Who are the wheat growers?
I like to kind of define them as they're some of the most passionate ones, but they're really the ones that are trying to define the space of modern agriculture. They see themselves as the innovators, the early adopters. And they're sort of the ones that aren't too afraid to kind of put their hand up and say, hey, this is really what needs to happen for ag to progress, and for Canada in particular to progress with ag and stay at that sort of pace that we've been known to hold for quite some time.
So what are those issues that they're sticking their hand up and saying, hey, wait a minute here, have you thought about this? Or here's what our opinion is, because there are some loud voices in that group.
You know, it's a harder question than it used to be. It seems like when I was doing this 10, 15, 20 years ago, the issues were a little bit slower to come and a little bit fewer and further between. But now it just seems like there's a bit of an onslaught. So, you know, forgive me for not giving you sort of the labor of the day version of this. But I mean, everything from regulatory overreach is certainly part of it. I mean, we're dealing with trade. You got issues at the ports. Labor disputes. I mean, it's really coming at us from all angles. And one of the biggest things coming into this role that I want to bring to it is we're going to need to prioritize. There's a lot of great organizations out there, grain growers, grain councils, commissions. Everyone's got to kind of pick and choose a little bit. So that's going to be part of my job as the new guy coming in is, you know, what is going to be the focus? So what's going to move the needle the most for us?
Yeah, for a long time, the wheat growers really rallied and wrapped themselves around getting rid of the single desk selling of board grains. That was, you know, there was other issues, but that was like the fundamental identity of the organization. But we don't really have like an issue like that right now. We've got a lot of issues, but they're definitely smaller in nature and don't get that broad, singular, isolated attention like the single desk did.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, that's one of the nice things about focus when you had something like the wheat boards, as you can call it an issue, an organization, you know, it's really about free trade. So that underlying premise of what they want to achieve hasn't gone away, right? And so you can think of it as better trade. You can think of adding transparency to the system. We've got a few new KPIs with the strategic plan that we put together. It really comes down to what's going to help us improve productivity, what's going to help us improve our competitiveness, and make sure that we're getting access to the newest and best technology that's out there for the farmers to use here.
One of the issues, that is been identified here in the last year that I've seen numerous wheat grower members talking about a lot is like the gate project, for example. Is there an official position out of wheat growers on that project as an example?
It's one of those things that kind of popped up. They want to, and I think deserve to, have a better understanding of, what the business case is for this, what is the underlying premise. I myself had a pretty significant role to play in the creation of Cereals Canada. So, I want to have that conversation with them. Yeah, we came in with a lot of questions, and really what it comes down to and how we want to move forward. What's the solution? Like, what's the problem that they're aiming to solve with the gate project? And so we're going to kind of dig into that here over the next short period of time and really come to a better conclusion that I can give you some solid, like, this is how we actually stand on it right now. We're just really interested in doing right by growers and spending money in the right places.
Yeah, one of the other issues that is definitely going, I think, it'd be more of a discussion point post election, and I've seen a few farm groups that are bringing it up now, is plant breeding, and the public funding side of that, or attracting more private investment. You've got a history and some experience, like you mentioned, on the private side of wheat breeding. I've heard numerous people in the last several months through my travels talking about how, boy, there's going to be some cutbacks if we get a conservative government. I wonder if plant breeding could be one of those things that faces some budget cuts. What's your thoughts from the exploration of that topic, and what are some of the questions, or do you have any thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a lot of thoughts on it. Coming out of the private sector in particular, we just saw different technology. We saw different approaches to breeding and then different results as a consequence. And in particular, living in the States for almost a decade, I know how these systems can coexist. And so I hope that the discussion really becomes broader than, just a research mandate. To me, I think we need to put a little bit more emphasis and continue the discussion on development and commercialization in particular, Sean. I think sort of the Canadian environment tends to be a little bit reliant on government, and not to say that they don't do a good job, but part of what the important part is, ask the question: what if we did it different? Like, what could we gain by taking different perspectives and approaches to business plans and cases, and then entities, things like that. And if we come with the same conclusion, so be it. I think that's good, but I think it's also a good discussion to have.
Yeah, and clearly there's a positive look from farmers about plant breeding. We back in the spring, Real Agri Studies had asked farmers about a number of different policies. Do you see them as being positive or negative on your operations? The most positive policy was investment in plant breeding. So this is a discussion I think farmers are definitely willing to have. Where people stand on it will definitely be as status quo, or make some big changes and try to make it better for the broader audience. And another issue that I know wheat growers are never shy and bashful about talking about is railways and transport. I'm sure you're going to be focusing a lot on that file as well.
Yeah, you've got it. Being landlocked and sort of the place where most of the grains get produced in Western Canada, it lends itself to a bit of a sticky situation. And regardless of whether we like it, whether we hate it, it's part of our reality. And I think the conversations that we've had with MPs and others are, there's no real easy answers. And so, we just have to be realistic. Fine, and let's figure out what the hard answers are. And what can we do, right? The search for options, I think, is always part and parcel with coming to some kind of a solution. And I've been known to have some, bad options, bad ideas from time to time. But the idea is, hopefully it'll lead to something good. And I think if we can do anything, hopefully it is to be the sounding board, come up with good ideas, bad ones, whatever it is. But make sure that we're having the discussion, right? So we got to go from the seed, the importance there and research. But I mean, it's got to get to those foreign markets. And, I've sort of, over the last 20 years, have kind of come to the conclusion, like, value add is a really big deal. So, the groups that are continuing to look at investment and trying to figure out, how do you maybe reduce the reliance on some of those rails and whatnot, let's talk about it. It's hard. It's very expensive, but we got to be able to compete internationally. So I think there's a lot more to it than meets the eye, Sean.
Yeah, and you mentioned wheat growers going through a strategic planning process. Is a component of that to expand membership? Are you happy with the current base that you have? What's thoughts from a growth perspective?
Yeah, growth is always really important. I just want to encourage any growers that want to be a part of the organization. Put your hand up, come reach out. It's the more the merrier, I think, is one way to look at it. But certainly, if you have a mindset that you want to see progress, we want to have that discussion, and please be part of the group. I think what builds community and the vibrancy of our industry is that collaboration, and that's certainly one of our key values going forward. So if you felt like we've been not your kind of organization, maybe I'd encourage everybody to be willing to reach out. I'm more than happy to have a conversation, sit down, maybe find something cold and wet in between, and really kind of dig into the issues and how we're approaching them. But the idea is, please, we do look at growth as an important thing. We want to represent the types of growers that are powering the ag economy. If that sounds like yourself, I'm always around for a chat.
Hey, great stuff. We've been talking to the new executive director as of this week. It is Darcy Pawlik with the Western Wheat Growers. Hey, it is great to chat with you, Darcy. All the best to you, and I'm sure we will see you out and about on the convention circuit here in Q1. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, thanks very much, Sean. Thanks for having me, and thanks for all you do as well. It's important to have the voice of a very wide variety of folks out there, so really appreciate it.
Appreciate it. I misspoke too. I said Western Wheat Growers. Wheat Growers Association.
Right.
Yeah.